In this episode, we'll be chatting with Helen Packham about the moment she realized loving herself was essential to life and how she is the change she wishes to see in the world. Hello, Helen. How are you?
Hello, Lauren. I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. I'm just going to let our listeners know a little bit about you. Helen is a transformational life and business coach for mum, because she's in the UK, entrepreneurs. She helps them find clarity in their life and business through strong foundations of self-knowing, self-love, and self-care. Well, I've given our listeners just a little overview, Helen. So take a minute, tell us where you're from, where you live, what you like to do, and what love means to you.
So, hello, listeners. I am in Brighton in the UK by the sea. I live here with my husband and two children. I absolutely love salty sea air. I'm a bit of a chocolate addict, and I really, really love writing poetry. Love, gosh, it's meant many things to me. But right now, where I stand right now, and kind of the journey that I've been on the last year, I'd say really feeling a solid sense of love for myself has been, and is very, very important, not only for my own life, but also for the lives of the others I'm helping now.
That's awesome. And I have to tell you that I don't think that we've had self-knowing as kind of a topic of what people build foundations on. And what stands out to me about it is that self-knowing is what allows you to keep going and going and going because you have that internal mechanism that if you know, then you're going to have more confidence and more faith to get things done.
Absolutely. Awareness, having that awareness and knowing, is the first step of transformation. That is like a key part of what I love and what I do.
Cool. Well, I'm super excited to talk to you because we had some fun in the pre-chat, and I think that what you're doing is amazing because I'm all about entrepreneurship. That's your, that you're helping entrepreneurs specifically because that is helping people get back in touch to what their innate gifts are, which I think is so important, not to just punch a clock. But before we get into your story, we always want to start the show off on a high vibe note using a quote or a mantra. Do you have one that you can share with us?
I do, and it's by unknown. It's an unknown quote, but it is. Maybe the journey isn't about becoming anything. It is about unbecoming everything that isn't really you, so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place.
That is so true. And I just, Love Club knows that we batch these recording days, right? For this show, we change the format to 5 days a week from 7 days a week, but still you can't record every day. But I'll tell you, the day of this recording, I just did a webinar all about forgetting what you've been programmed with and remembering who you are. That is ideal. I'm going to steal that quote and put it on my Facebook.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, it really means a lot to me, that one.
Yes. And so I can already tell that universal timing of what is going on, this conversation is going to be epic because you're already touching on things that I've been recently researching and experiencing on purpose. So let's get into it because at Love is a Verb, we are storytellers because our stories are life's lessons that we learn along the way, and they may help someone listening right now where you, Helen, are the light at the end of the tunnel. So please share with us when you realized loving yourself was essential to life.
So I guess the starting point of my story was that I didn't actually realize that I didn't love myself. I was in a quite senior corporate role as an executive coach, and I got pregnant in 2012 and went off for a year-long maternity leave. And in that time, I really became a little bit untethered to who I formerly was, and it was quite uncomfortable, and it left me feeling a bit lost. And I felt like all of my corporate experience and my confidence had really kind of just dribbled out of my ears. That's how it felt. And it was replaced with mulch. So when I went back to my job, I was so unconfident. I really didn't feel like I was worthy of that role anymore. And so I left. I felt that there was no other option for me than to leave and to start up a business. And I did that because in that year off, I had become very, very sleep deprived. And I'd
Right.
learned a lot.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah. I had learned a lot about how to help my child sleep. She'd had various health issues, and I thought that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start up a business as a parent coach. So I left the corporate world behind, and I started up a business, and it was great, and it worked really well, and the clients came, and then I fell pregnant for the second time, and that was when my marriage fell apart. And my marriage fell apart for the same reasons that I felt like I left my corporate job. And how it was it was unearthed during marriage counselling and personal coaching and all sorts of other things that I went through, was that actually I didn't know myself anymore, and therefore I did not love myself at all. Throughout my relationship, my marriage, I had got myself into a situation where I didn't express my needs. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know what my desires were. I didn't know what I loved. Nothing had any flavour to it. It was like I'd pushed it all down into a basement.
I totally had a similar experience to that. It wasn't like in well, it was kind of everything. It was personal and business. When I had my gym, I hired this very, very brash business coach who was like hardcore Italian from the East Coast in the United States, like bring a bat to somebody and take care of business. Like it was really weird, even how I met him. And he asked me these questions. It was all about like brand building with the gym because I really didn't have a brand. And what we kind of boiled down to, which was very painful and included a lot of tears, was that I didn't have any really strong interest in anything. I had just kind of like gone through life and was like, oh, I like strength training. Oh, I like helping women. Here, Pilates Barbell Club. But there was there wasn't really a tribe culture and like what somebody could identify what we were doing there. And it was hard. Like, and one day he asked me, he's like, well, who's your favorite sports team? Like, we didn't watch sports. I don't know. Like, I don't have one. He's like, oh, it all makes sense. He's like, you don't have a favorite anything. And he made me go through and be like, what do you actually enjoy doing? And there really wasn't anything there. And it was really kind of depressing. Like, right? And like, you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, what you've just said there is, and brand and in how you actually build a brand is all about really knowing yourself and knowing who you are. So I went on the journey to discover that from the experience of, so my husband moved out and I had, newborn baby, and I was kind of forced into this situation where I had no other option but to look at it all.
Yeah. How old was your first child at that point?
She just turned 3.
Oh my gosh, 3 and a newborn. Okay, continue, my darling.
So, it was a bit of a rude awakening, but it was so needed because it was like a trapdoor had been opened and out came all of this noise and all of these feelings and all of this stuff that I knew was in there, but I just lost it all. And I realized I had such a passion for music that had just gone. I'd stopped listening to music. I'd stopped writing. I love writing poetry. I just stopped doing all the things that I loved. I didn't know what my needs were, and I started to establish what they were, what that looked like, what that gave me, and I started requesting that they be met. I got really clear on my values. All of the things you've mentioned about kind of building a foundation.
Yeah, and your values, like that's something that oh my gosh, I don't remember when we were talking about it. We were talking about it on an episode that when you have your mission, your core values that you can see like on Lululemon or, the Honest Company with Jessica Alba. I don't know, like,
Oh, yeah.
like what other international companies are there, right? Like we're so secluded on our countries, right? But basically, I relate it to this, that like if you go to a company and you see these core values, you can have your own operating system of core values. And that makes it a lot easier to make decisions because if it's not alignment with your core value, you just straight up say no. And that keeps you like in your self-respect bubble.
Exactly, and having that love and compassion for myself. So, by realizing what my values were, it meant that I kind of had, I knew what was right and wrong in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew what was crossing those boundaries and what wasn't. Go on.
I was like, sorry, I didn't. I was hoping this microphone's so amazing. You can hear the aha moments for me. I was thinking that, you're past it. You're now, teaching this to other people, obviously. But before we get into that, but you're at that space where you've moved past it to a point where it's not an emotional thing for you right now. So what I'm wondering is if you can take us to a moment in that realization of the darkness, because if someone's listening right now who's in that time frame in their life where you were, like what was one of like the hardest standout moments that you remember feeling? And then how did you start to come out of it?
I think for me, the hardest moment was realizing that I was responsible for my own emotions and that I was not responsible for other people's emotions. And actually it was really difficult to realize that, but actually it was very empowering because I was always looking outside of myself for validation, for love and validation, always, never in, always out. My validation always came from what other people thought, whether other people thought what I was doing was right or wrong, including, right, unknowingly, my husband and my family members. And so when I started to look inside and actually realize, gosh, no, I am responsible. I am responsible for my happiness. I am responsible for my emotions, not anybody else. They are responsible for theirs and I'm responsible for mine. It was a very difficult realization, but it actually meant that I could start taking action of my situation. And I was empowered. I felt empowered.
Do you remember anything that stands out to you of like something that you were holding on to forever, like resentment or guilt or shame that like you were able to let go of?
Yes, in particular with the relationship with my husband, and the dynamic that had been created because I always was in a one down position. I was always not worthy, and that was my victim. I was a victim. And when I actually finally realized that I'm okay, and so is he, that I am worthy, and so is he, that was when it kind of all dissolved. The resentment dissolved. The
Yeah.
compassion and kindness, the loving kindness came.
So when you're going through this process of realizing this, and I always say that you're remembering it, like this is how we are innately born. We just get programmed with our culture and our upbringing to not feel this way. So when you're starting to remember that this innate worthiness is within you and within him, and maybe there's just, personality clash or whatever it is that we have to identify it as, how did that dynamic change in your relationship?
Yeah, it changed. It changed quite dramatically, and it changed quite quickly. And all of a sudden, I felt I wasn't coming from the victim standpoint anymore. I was coming from a place of worthiness, and so I stated what my needs were. I requested that they were met. I knew what my values were. I knew, what my likes and my dislikes were. And so when something didn't feel right, I felt okay to speak up. And honor the feelings that I felt and the boundaries that I had around that type of thing, in a completely respectful way, rather than a attacking or blame filled way.
All right. Well, so when you're going through this and you already mentioned that when you went back to corporate UK, when you went to go back to corporate work, you left it, you started doing a parenting business to really help parents, parent better. What then happened in this process of you getting back in touch with yourself? What did you start to evolve after that?
Well, this was the real game changer for me because in realizing, in learning to love myself, I then started to realize that actually all of my corporate career and experience was worth something. And that what I'd actually done is run away from that. And yes, I built a business and I still have that business and I love that business, but I knew that wasn't necessarily my true passion and purpose. What my true passion and purpose was utilizing all of those skills and experience, but to help people just like me. people like me, mums who like me had left to have a baby, lost themselves, lost their confidence, and lost kind of, any sense of who they were, and felt untethered as a result of it. So it was absolutely crystal clear after that what my mission was. And it was to help mums just like me.
I love what you're saying. And this is exactly like in alignment with some of the ways I describe this podcast or what it is that I do, that you can find triumph in your tragedy and you can find purpose in your pain. And this is exactly it. Because had you not gone through those experiences of, having baby number one, baby number two, dissolving your marriage, having to go within instead of the world without, had you not experienced that, you'd still be working corporate. You'd still be punching a clock. That's really all that would have come of your life. And if that's not your life purpose, you're not going to feel fulfilled.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, I feel so fulfilled now. And the key thing, I think, is when I left to launch that first business, I still didn't know who I was. So now it's so fundamental that all the things we've discussed, I work through with my clients. You have to get solid on you. You have to cultivate that compassion for yourself. You have to know your values. You have to know what's important to you, your needs, all of that in order to build a business that's the right one for you.
Exactly. I love that you just finished with the right one for you, because I'm, looking at all my notes that I've been taking on you as you're talking. And the biggest difference, I think, with what you're doing and with what I do too, is that when you're helping people build this business that's based on them, then that's that real soul connection of why you're here on the planet, what your gifts and your abilities are. And it's different than when you have like a more traditional business approach where they say you are not your business. It's not your baby. You're completely separate from it, which is fine if it's solely centered on just being a profitable business and very black and white, profit and losses, that type of thing. But when you're doing something that you want to feel fulfilled, what you're doing for people is crucial.
Well,
right? Yes, you're welcome. So you're what I call the double ripple. I don't know if you've heard me say that before, but the double ripple is someone who is a soul-centered business, but their business is helping other soul-centered entrepreneurs.
I love that.
Right? Double ripple. I love it. I know. I gotta do something with that. But I want to talk more about that. I think that's really cool. So what is one thing? Can you share with us a way that maybe if someone's listening right now and they've been listening to the podcast, they've been getting inspired to create something to monetize their gifts and their talents, where's the place to start when you're not sure what to do?
Great question. And it is something that I have, learned and tried and tested along the way with this business. It's only been running 8 months, but I've learned so much in that time. And I have come up with what I call the Clarity Mountain.
I like it.
And at Basecamp is the place to start. And Basecamp involves getting so clear on who you are, on what your values are, and what your story is. Because it's in your story and your key turning points and milestones that you find your business. You find that business idea and you find your passion and purpose. And particularly if you're a service-based entrepreneur. If you're product-based, there may be, something that's inspired you, or you've acted out of desperation in that story to come up with that product. But, it can work for product or service-based. Getting really clear on your story is a great, great start.
What's the next step?
Okay, the next step is to use that and to take the findings from your story, and you're going to, pick up your key milestones from life and business and discover what your strengths are. So my background in the corporate world was in strengths development coaching. So a positive psychology approach, looking at the things that you are really, really good at, the things that make you feel like you're buzzing and fizzing and you could do it all day long and you would never get tired, really capitalizing on those and leveraging them so that you're focusing on the things that give you the most energy and that you're most productive in doing.
Next. I'm climbing up the mountain. I can see myself climbing up the mountain right now.
So the next step, once you've got clarity on your strengths and you cultivate your unique ability, you identify what your unique ability is, you move on to your vision and your mission. So you still haven't defined your service or your ideal client or any of that sort of stuff. You are getting clear on your bigger purpose, the thing that's higher than you, the thing that's going to make an impact on the world through what you're doing. That's your vision. And then you define your mission. That's how you're going to do it. That comes next. As well as goals and, and things like that. So setting yourself clear goals.
Awesome. I love it. So you got base camp where you're getting clear on who you are and what your story is, which is just vital. Your key milestones in your life, finding your strengths, your vision and your mission, that bigger purpose. And then what I love to say, reverse engineering it, breaking down that bigger purpose and figuring out how to get it done. That's genius. And Love Club, hopefully you are an official member. And that just means that you are on the daily love letters list, because this little outline I'm going to put in today's email with her episode. And if you're a member of Love Club, you can find a post about this as well. So you can see it in writing. So you can kind of get yourself on a starting path. And I would definitely suggest reaching out to Helen on your way if this is totally making sense to you. Thanks, Helen. That was perfect.
Oh, no worries at all. An absolute pleasure.
Well, let's take a quick break for our sponsors. Hey, Love Club, if you have been listening to these stories and been so excited and so inspired, but not really known how to apply the principles and the core beliefs that so many of our guests have used to transform their life, then coaching might be an option for you. If you go to bit.ly/coachwithlauren, you can see a little private coaching page all about how we can get started. We can work on your mindset, your nutrition, your fitness, business and podcasting, or all of the above. I work with clients one-on-one, 1 to 6 days per week. Now, of course, that much time and that much value isn't going to come cheap. The first program starts at $4.99 a month, but because you are part of Love Club, all you have to do is enter in the discount code Love Club in the application, and immediately you'll get 50% off. This 50% discount is only going to last through December 31st of 2016. It's a big thank you from me to you for being part of this podcast, which has been such an incredible passion project and has really helped me grow and helped hundreds of listeners worldwide grow as well. Once again, if you're ready for coaching, go to bit.ly/coachwithlauren. All right, Helen, we have now reached the love round, also known as a lightning round. You have just 3 sentences max to answer the questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
In what way do you practice the most amount of self-love?
By really honoring my needs and putting those into daily rituals that I call bliss rituals.
In what way do you struggle in giving yourself love?
When little Miss Self-Doubt sits on my shoulder a bit too much and talks in my ear.
What has you most excited right now?
My program in helping other women just like me.
Well, what was holding you back from loving yourself?
Just being completely unaware of the road I'd gone down and what had happened to me.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
You are responsible for your own emotions. And no, don't go out, go deeper. That was it. Don't go out, go deeper.
Share a resource that has helped you love wholeheartedly.
A resource, the book, The Self-Love Affair by Katie Phillips.
Love Club, you can find links to that resource and everything else we've been chatting about in today's episode by going to laurenherrera.com/Helen Packham. That's HelenPakham. Helen, I have truly enjoyed listening to your journey, and I thank you so much for sharing your love story with us today. If you could suggest one way Love Club can take action today to transform their life, what would it be?
Look at your beliefs, flip them to ones that serve you.
Ooh, juicy. Yes. And take a minute to share the best way we can find you, and then we'll say goodbye.
You can find me hanging out on my website, www.helenpackham.com.
Awesome. Helen, Love Club is well aware they can find links to everything of value we have mentioned in today's episode by going to laurenherrera.com, clicking the episode tab, and finding you in the archives, or just entering in Helen in the search bar and your show notes page will pop right up. Helen, thank you for being so generous with your time, expertise, and experience. Love Club gives you a big hug and uber amounts of gratitude.
Thank you so much.
Love Club, thank you so much for listening to another Love is a Verb podcast.